You're listening to the SS Experience on S&G.
Wish I could listen to the music is like a little faded for the Twitter Spaces. You know what I mean? But the SS Experience, we back on Twitter Spaces. Make sure that you follow at Henry Hardaway 75. Follow the show at the SS Experience. No E at the beginning of Experience. There was so much news to actually get into. Kanye is going on his huge rant. The Carters, Hove and B is, taking shots. Even, the kids, their kids, the Carter kids is taking shots from Kanye West. You got word for Kim Kardashian as well, raising black kids and all of that stuff. Just so much stuff with that. We got March Madness that is started. We had a good couple of games yesterday, I believe. As of right now, as we speak, there's games going on now. So I'll put you on with something. Actually, if I might as well put you guys on now real quick. Let's go ahead and get the fun activities and stuff out the way. So what we're doing for March Madness is we're doing our third annual SMG tournament challenge where we take a field of normally 68 things and we put them in a March Madness style tournament and we see who wins based on what goes on in real March Madness. This year we're doing alleged or actual BBLs, women who have been accused of having BBLs or who've admitted to the world that they have BBLs. So we're judging the BBLs, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, and we're playing it along with March Madness. Yesterday we had our play-in tournament for the 12th seed, I believe, in our tournament. It was lovely Mimi, represented by the University of North Carolina, and Asian Doll, represented by San Diego State. And North Carolina won, which means lovely Mimi moves on to the full, in our tournament, 32 teams, where she'll play the number 5 seed, I believe, Shanae Agumake. I know she plays Chanel Goom. Just got to make sure I got the seating right. But that sounds about right. A 5'12". Yeah, that's about right. So we have that going on right there. So if you don't have a bracket yet, go ahead and get a bracket on all of our social medias. Again, at Henny Hardaway 75 at the SS Experience. Like I said, any of our social medias have a copy of the bracket on it. Or if you want the actual, PDF, actual file, like the file that comes from the computer, not necessarily you screenshotting it from your phone, just hit us up in our DMs and we'll go ahead and send you a bracket. The bracket after we do our round or our first two in, which we got games going on tonight. We will basically start the full tournament in the round of 32. So basically after the first weekend or something like that. Yeah, I basically after the first weekend, we will have our round of 32 and then our tournament will begin. The reason, because I really couldn't think of 68 women. I mean, you know what? Let me take that back. I could think of 68 women to allegedly or have a BBL. I even forgot some good ones from this particular bracket, but that happens when you make brackets or whatever. Sometimes you slip up on stuff. But most of the women that I would have ended up picking out would have been like, no offense, a whole bunch of white girls, that, do content creation, got a BBL, let that type of little stuff. Not the typical individuals that, we know from in the culture, but nonetheless, we still have a good tournament. So go ahead and get yourself a bracket. It's the third annual SMG tournament challenge. Now that we got that right there out the way, so when I know in a lot of people's jobs, there's social media policies. There's like, don't film or record what goes on in work. Don't take what goes on in work and display it on social media. You don't want to quote unquote embarrass your job or whatever. But when the said information or the said story or the said thing that we're talking about actually was put on the air, then everybody else in the world is going to take stabs at it. So why not us? And what I mean by that is like slight example, but not directly. So when Joy Taylor was okay, never mind, because that's not really a sports story per se. Because I was going to mention when Joy Taylor was accused, or still is accused of, sexual misconduct and various things like that through a former hairdresser or friend on, for Fox Sports One. I know that situation is still going on, but okay, it's not the same exact thing because that's not sports. That's just like if we were in the space to like a podcast or something like that, then somebody at Fox might have talked about it, but might not, because again, that's definitely something that directly affects individuals at the job. But this thing with the Breakfast Club is totally different because it started off with just hilarious crashing out. And I would say if post production gets it going, we can go ahead and put the sound and audio there because I kind of want to just be lazy real quick and just talk. But if post production is available, we'll go ahead and play a little bit of sound from Just Hilarious.
Narrative. Like, I understand after comments and yeah, after people and all that. But it's not all about them. It's how I'm feeling too. What if I'm feeling the same way the people feel? You know what I'm saying? So what? Because niggas online feel a certain way. I feel the same way they feel about it.
Call me and curse me out. Call in me and
done
curse them
that.
out. Yes, you do.
Yes, like okay. I've done that. You know what I mean?
There's a bigger issue sometimes too, because I feel like, all right, you'll call him, you'll cuss him out. We might talk about different situations, but I think a lot of times if there's an issue for real, and then it don't be no movement in here, it's like there's an issue outside and then there's no movement in here, and then we just all in here like he ha. Like you're doing a lot of it right now. You're laughing and joking, but for real, you know that she's up here crying. Nothing about that is funny. Like there's real issues and real problems, and we don't really get to the gist of it.
Ever.
I want the.
And so those are the things that we're talking about. So that conversation there started what we heard, or what some of you heard this morning. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't listen to it because from what I've seen and heard, for me, it's cringeworthy because it's like, and I'll get to why it's cringeworthy, but let's just get the story real quick. So, Just Hilarious, Lauren Larazzo, I'll just call her Lauren. I forget how her last name is or how to pronounce it, but I know it's Lauren. DJ Envy, Charlamagne the God, the whole Breakfast Club, all four of them, upon unpopular belief, all four of them, were on the show today, and they was, hashing out their feelings of Just Hilarious spazzing out. Now, if we didn't do the post-production, Just Hilarious is spazzing out because she went on maternity leave not too long after being hired as the third co-host of The Breakfast Club to replace Angela Yee. And she picked an individual to basically do her segments for her while she's away, which normal. Normally, it would be a producer to kind of sort of fill in, not necessarily a host, but sometimes it can be. But in this particular instance, it was the show's producer. The show producer did a very, very good job that when Just Hilarious came back, she was still doing her segment while being present. Again, I don't know this for certain, but I know this is what's been said. So that made Jess Hilarious kind of rub the wrong way, and for her to basically spaz out on her IG Live for about 15 minutes, give or take, and spazzing out type stuff, and it led to the conversation that they had this morning on the Breakfast Club on various iHeartRadio stations throughout the country. Now, again, I didn't watch it because, like I said, I figured it was cringeworthy, but I saw the clips, I've seen the transcripts, and pretty much a lot of disrespect was going on from Just Hilarious point, but there was a lot of gaslighting that was going on from, Lauren, Charlamagne, and Envy as well. Now maybe in post production we can play like a couple of clips of it, but like I said, I personally didn't hear it for real. So if we got clips, we can go ahead and just run the clip. It's all good. Let's get it. So those various things right there, for me, this is the conversation that I wanted to have, because you can say whether or not, you like Just Hilarious, you like Lauren Moore, you know, Lauren does her job better than Jess, various things like that. But and again, we're gonna have DJ 321 on the show. We scheduled to have him on. We'll just, keep the show going until he gets here. But this is the angle that I wanted to go to. Now, remember this timeline real quick. So so Charlemagne the God is interviewing Gucci Mane, and this is probably about 2019 or something like that, give or take. But you'll remember the timeline, even if you don't remember the actual date, but you'll remember the events. Charlemagne the God is interviewing Gucci Mane. Gucci Mane mentioned some things about Angela Yee from, back in the day before Angela Yee was popping, which again could be true, but let's just keep it moving. Saying that Angela Yee was kind of like outside, thirsty for Gucci Mane, kind of like, oh, Gucci Mane's the celebrity, get an interview, book an interview, yada, yada, yada. And Charlemagne the God didn't challenge that because I think they was arguing about something that Angela Yee was kind of dismissive on, and then that's when Gucci Mane came out like, man, that bitch ain't shit. She was outside doing all these other things, and Charlemagne the God was silent. He didn't quote unquote defend his teammate in that situation. So the interview gets put out, which is insane that Charlemagne still put it out anyway, not even thinking about what was going on. And that kind of put a rift in the Breakfast Club, as far as with Angela Yee and Charlemagne per se. So I don't even think they had a heated debate on radio about this. They might have had something, but I don't remember it because, like I said, this is crazy right now. But they, had their falling out. It's kind of like you sense the vibes on air. And again, we're going to talk about why certain things happen or shouldn't have happened. But they kept it professional on air and did their jobs and kept it moving. I think that energy was going on for about 2.5 years because for about a year, Angela Yee announced that she was leaving the show, but she ended up staying on the show for a long time where it was like, yo, like, why are you still here? Like, you supposed to be gone. Angela Yee constantly saying she's about to leave the show. Bitch, why are you still here? And, eventually, which I don't know why it took so long for this to happen, but again, I'll go into that conversation later. She gets her own show. Now the Breakfast Club is 2 individuals and they're looking for a third. Now, throughout this time period, they use celebrities like Claudia Jordan. So they used, outside celebrity people. I think Jasmine Brand may have had a cup of coffee on this thing, but I know Claudia Jordan for sure. I think Jason Lee also did something. So various social media celebrities or just celebrities in general was in that third seat, on the Breakfast Club. Then within, let's say, the last 2 weeks of, before they announced who was going to be on, they started using local talent from various big markets. I know some individuals from Atlanta participated in filling in for the Breakfast Club, and other people down in Miami, LA. So basically, big market radio talent in the company. Had a cup of coffee doing the co-hosted for the Breakfast Club. So when the dust settles, Just Hilarious gets the job. She is announced as the new co-host of the Breakfast Club. This is where I go into the deeper conversation that I want to have. As I mentioned earlier, there were several individuals who, from the local markets that they selected to come up and do the Breakfast Club. Again, because they was all from the big markets, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., maybe, L.A., Miami, and all that. But Atlanta and Miami for sure. And I've felt that the hiring for that position should have been universal, like throughout, like not just you put a job application out there and people apply, like especially if you're internal and you're already on air, you should have had an opportunity to get that job or get that position. And here's why. Because even if you would have hired Claudia Jordan, she did radio before. Jason Lee, does podcasts, so he kind of understands the radio world. as far as with delivering content and stories. But you picked as a company, they picked the individual who doesn't come from a media background, they come from a comedic background. I'm going to break down every flaw why Jess Hilarious shouldn't have been hired to begin with. And as a result, this situation should have never happened. And let's start with this. I mentioned just a second ago. Jess Hilarious does not have any media education. Now, I don't know if she went to college or not, but I'm assuming that her career and her stardom is from comedy. So she kind of doesn't remember or use or kind of care about the things that media members do to prepare for shows. Because what people have said was about her segment, Jess with the Mess, that it sounds like somebody gave her a headline 5 minutes prior to her doing the segment, which I can see how that is because guess what? We do that on this podcast pretty much all the time. We don't get paid like that. There's not, ad dollars or anything like that that's filtered through it. So, yeah, you get what you pay for type stuff. So I could see her doing that. But as a result of her doing that, they felt that her as a comedian with fans and followers would be good enough to fill that seat. This situation has proven that being a social media influencer, comedian, millions of followers isn't good enough to occupy a radio seat because there are certain things that you have to do in radio that the average social media influencer don't know. It's not just cut the mic on, say something funny, entertain, and that's it. I mean, that's part of it, but that wasn't just Hilarious's role. Keep in mind, she took place of Angela Yee. Angela Yee was not funny. Angela Yee was informative. So if anything, Angela Yee is informative. Charlemagne the God is kind of like the comedic effect, even though he has seriousness, but he's kind of the person that brings the energy and laughter at times. And DJ Envy controls the traffic. He moderates, controls everything, keeps everything organized. That was the dynamic role of the Breakfast Club. So Angela Yee leaves, who's informative. Now you need someone else to be informative. Now again, Charlemagne the God can be informative because at times when Angela Yee wasn't on the show because she's on vacation, Charlemagne the God, did the Yee tea, so he was informative. Charlemagne can do that. So you replace the informative with another energy comedic type person in which when that segment, which, combination of Yee tea and Just with the Mess is normally an informative segment, with information, because that's where informative comes from, with information, you just got a headline and jokes. So you really don't know what the story is because the storyline is being trampled by jokes. A lot of people wasn't feeling that. So again, let's go back. Let's keep the main thing real quick. That's one of the reasons why you just can't put people in a radio seat without training. And what I mean by training is I don't mean by pressing buttons and all of that stuff. Like in college, you learn those type of things. You learn how to write stories. Like I give you an example. If you guys listen to ESPN radio and they do the Sports Center alert, Chris and Lisi and all of those individuals who do that have to write those Sports Center headlines. Norfolk State defeats the University of Florida 86-76 in the first round of the MEAC tournament. Such and such scored the game high 25 points and 3 assists while defense, but little stuff like that. It's not just like the headline. It's like you got to add a little bit of tidbits and sauce to it and kind of go to the next thing. My point is that Jess Hilarious wouldn't know that off the top of her head because the company won't train you on basic things like that. And sometimes you shouldn't have to train somebody on basic things like that. Unless it's something that, maybe it's a little bit of an executive thing, something like that. But reporting news, there's an outline for news gathering and news reporting. Like those are things that you learn in journalism class that you learn in college. Now, again, people think that you can just cut on a microphone and just talk into a mic and it's all good. It's like, nah. I mean, it is that easy, but it's not that easy. It's that easy to talk, yes. But what you say out of your mouth and the way that you say it, that's where the skill and the decorum comes in. It's just like when I talk about people with club hosting. It's like people in certain markets, like in Columbus, Ohio, they don't want to pay the radio guy a premium for them to club host. They think, oh, my mans can do it. And it's like, yo, it's not just grab a mic, say turn up, go to the bar, shout out my DJ, where the bitches. It's way more than that when it comes to event hosting. A lot more. It's a lot more entertainment stuff like that. So the executives just think that, oh, this is easy. Now, some of the executives come from the programming side of radio, which is crazy that they would do this because you have to have experience doing it. And it goes back into what a lot of people are trying to tap into. Let me get the person with the most social media followings, with the most impressions, and we can work it from there. The flaw in that is, for one, when it comes to pay. Now, I don't know how much Just Hilarious is getting paid, but the average iHeart employee doesn't like their pay. They feel like they're being underpaid. They don't get paid like that for the work that they do. Now, is it still enough money that they're just basically crying and need to shut up? Could be. But if you're working a job and that comes out of your mouth that you're not getting paid like that or you're not making the money that you should, then that's a company issue right there. Even if you're one of the great talents and you still say that, that's crazy. You should, like, if you're a person who works at iHeart and you're a top level talent in your market, you should be able to walk and be like, I'm good as far as financially goes. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm well taken care of. I'm well compensated. Kind of like Stephen A. Smith, for example. Like, I know Stephen A. Smith at times joked around about being underpaid, but that was like the contract that he accepted type thing. But now he's not underpaid. He's paid very handsomely. But he never really, went around like probably with well, no, he might have been around like, yo, I need to get paid more or whatever. But I don't think he never said like, I'm being like he's being jerked underpaid. Like he's probably like, I'm being underpaid based on what I'm bringing to the table. Yeah, people can say that all day long, like, because that's understandable. But just basically like, I'm underpaid. Yeah, that's insane. So you basically have a situation where individuals in the company don't make it like that. So you don't have that much leeway for other people. So depends on how much Jess Hilarious got paid, whatever. Like she may command it, may not. But from a talent acquisition standpoint, again, people in programming and radio know this already. There are certain things and rules that you have to do when it comes to, production, radio production, doing a radio show, especially a radio show like The Breakfast Club. Now, I've tweeted several times throughout the day about this, that if you wanted to use somebody's social media brand and following on radio, you have to give them a show that is similar to what they're known for so their fans and listeners can come. Now, maybe Just Hilarious fans and listeners did come or whatever, and are rightfully so. But what happened was the people who are authentic fans of the Breakfast Club started, you know, voicing their opinions. And this is kind of also how this thing started as well. If we can backtrack it just a tad bit more, people on social media was basically saying they like Lauren over Just Hilarious because, again, Lauren is informative when it comes to those segments. Like I said, like the former Yee or currently Just with the Mess. Those type of segments where you're given news topics needs to be informative, not necessarily entertaining. And Lauren understood that as a producer of the show and, acted accordingly. So now you have Lauren who's producing, doing her thing, out of sight, out of mind. The show flows better. Lauren is a producer, So she doesn't feel the need to like over talk because she's a producer. That's kind of like how it is. Like when you're a producer who's allowed to talk on air, you be thankful that you can talk on air, but you don't try to do too much because the host can be like, I don't want that producer talking anymore. They just produce. So it's kind of like a good thing when the co-host lets you talk as a producer. So it had a natural flow and rhythm. And again, I haven't heard the Breakfast Club in like hella years. I don't consume it, but as a person who works in radio, I'm assuming that's how this is. Charlemagne and Envy can cook a little bit more because the third wheel, isn't trying to, fit in, like, step over their toes, but the third wheel in Just Hilarious needs to have her place. But the individual who's taken over the third wheel while she's gone, and Lauren is basically just, wading in the weeds, waiting for an opportunity versus kind of injecting and taking her opportunity, if that makes sense. One is waiting for the opportunity, the other is taking, and that's at the expense of the flow of the show. So now, again, Lauren's doing her thing. The internet is realizing it. Corey Holcomb, who's been cracking jokes about Just Hilarious for hella years, he's in on it, and basically Just Hilarious snaps and goes off. Now, I'll get to that in a second. So she just goes off and snaps, and that's where we are today. Professionalism. Just because, and again, it goes back into when you're selecting these people. You have, radio talent who knows the protocol and know what goes on with radio. So nothing that is done affects them. Just Hilarious don't know nothing about radio, spazzes. Now, what we don't know is did she have these conversations in private? That's something that we don't know. If I had some sources, which I probably can find some real quick from New York to tell me some things, I can, let something be known or whatever. But for the most part, we don't know if she, voiced her opinion before saying, why is this girl still on the show? I'm back. I'm whatever type thing. So I'm not going to bash management just yet, but we'll get there. So there's a rule in sports that says if you don't lose your job if you're injured. So basically, if I play, basketball and I break my hand and I'm out for, 6 to 8 weeks, and my replacement comes in and balls their ass off, just because they're balling their ass off, that doesn't mean that I would lose my job, because I didn't lose my job to bad performance. I lost my job to being injured. Now, what normally happens is that they'll put the bench warmer back on the bench, but give them more minutes off the bench because they've proven that they can be productive, and they put the injured starter back in after they're healed and kind of see how it goes. If the injured starter is playing their game and the team is flowing the way that they flowed with the injured player coming back and it's normal, cool. They let it slide, despite the fact they're like, dang, but the bench woman was hooping though, but because everything goes back to normal the way it was. Now, if the injured player comes back to the lineup and he's sluggish a little bit, and then you got to inject the backup a little bit more. Now there's a discussion of who should play, because now we're talking about productivity. But it might be slightly different in a sports setting than an on-air setting, because the metrics of whether you're being productive or not are not on a nightly basis. So that might be something different as far as how that goes. But for the most part, though, it's still the same analogy, especially in Jess Hilarious's case, because she was pregnant. Now, why did she get pregnant not so long after accepting the position? That's a woman's conversation. I don't have a woman on the show right now. We're looking for female co-hosts, by the way. Hit up the show at the Essence Experience, no E at the beginning experience, or hit me up at Henny Hardaway 75 on everything. But yeah, we're not going to touch on that. But in other professions, even I think I've seen some things in the WWE with this wrestler named Carmella, getting pregnant at a certain time in the work world doesn't normally weigh out well. Good, bad, or indifferent, I'm just saying though. But Just Hilarious was pregnant. She was on maternity leave. She came back. Everything should be how it was. Lauren, you did your thing. Go back to the producer chair, either behind the wall or in the cut where, they are in their studio and keep everything moving. So from that aspect, I understand Just Hilarious. Now, if she had a conversation behind the scenes, then I would again understand her crashing out on Instagram Live. Because in her eyes, I can see why she's frustrated. But again, I'm still going to be under the main belief, and I'm dying on this hill, that she should never have been hired in the first place as either an established radio personality from another market or an up and coming person from behind the scenes, kind of like a Lauren or a mid major, somebody within the company should have had that role with the Breakfast Club over Just Hilarious. I'm gonna always stand on that business because that goes into the executives not knowing how to evaluate talent and pick talent. Just Hilarious is a talented person, but she's not a radio talent. There's a difference. She's talented as a comedian and can bring eyeballs to the yard, but she's not a radio talent. There's a difference. So now you have Just Hilarious feeling a certain way about basically y'all playing with her in her face. And again, rightfully so, she could feel that way for sure. DJ Envy said, kind of like get out your feelings. It's not that type of situation, but you can't tell a person how to feel, especially a woman. We all know that for sure. You cannot tell a woman how to feel. So, don't do that. Fellas, don't do that. That's like mansplaining. Don't do that. So on the other side of that coin, though, Lauren does a very good job because she is, and I'm assuming she went to college. She has a mass comm degree in, broadcast media in some sort of formal way. Maybe she has a journalism portion of her media background where she had to learn how to write and stuff like that and present stories. And that translates to radio, especially on a morning show where the morning show isn't like any other show during a day where it's more music. It's more talking than it is music. I probably say it's about 65, 45. I mean, 65, 35, excuse me, talking than the ratio of talking to music than it is during the regular day. So there's more opportunities to talk, there's more opportunities to showcase your talent, and there's more breathing room or whatever. And Lauren again took advantage of it. She did exactly what she was supposed to do, which is a producer in a fill-in role to her talent, which Just Hilarious, which that was kind of like they was taking shots at each other, but Lauren was more professional. She was saying, "You're my talent," kind of like a possessor type thing. It's like, yeah, you're the talent on the show, but you're my talent. I'm the producer that gives you the information that you need to do your show. You're mine, bitch. And you know what I'm saying? Just Hilarious energy is you belong in the back, bitch. You know what I'm saying? You're the help. So that's the type of energy that they was kind of like giving to each other, which is wild work. But again, it goes back into what I'm gonna stand on business on. Just Hilarious should have never been hired for that position. Because let's say Lauren didn't have any respect for her from the beginning. Let's say, for example, Lauren actually tried out for that position and didn't get it because of Just Hilarious. But because she did so good in her tryout or whatever, and she's in the building, they like, okay, well, look, we'll make you a producer on the Breakfast Club. Because I've seen that posting as well. People looking for a producer, for the show, whatever. And again, I didn't get a phone call or an interview about that neither. But again, that goes back to bad management about talent acquisition. We'll talk about that later. So Lauren, could have applied and been pushed to the back and all that stuff. And Lauren is, hating on her. Now, Just Hilarious wouldn't have no reason to hate on Lauren because she's not a threat. You know what I'm saying? She's a producer. She's in the back or whatever. But once she's seen the internet and social media say, oh, Lauren is better than Just Hilarious crashed out, you know? I'm not gonna say rightfully so. That's kind of like a professional type thing. But I wanted to bring something up real quick that I brung up on Twitter. If you're a fan of the Breakfast Club, and I don't know that many people are, but there are people that are fans, you know. But I wouldn't even say that they're fans of the Breakfast Club. I would just say that in their morning ritual, the radio is on, whether it's in the car, whether it's the app or whatever. Any morning show that's on, Power 105.1 or any breakfast or any morning show that would be on from 6 to 10 would get run as long as it's halfway decent. So let's just put that out there. But let's just say, for the sake of conversation, there's fans of the Breakfast Club. If you're fans of the Breakfast Club, peep me on this. Have you noticed that if Charlemagne, Envy, or the time Yee was out, there was never a replacement for them on the show, like a fill-in? Like, for example, if DJ Envy was on the show, but Envy drives the show, then either Charlemagne or Angela Yee would drive the show in Envy's place while doing their duties too. If Yee wasn't there, and you got the Yee tea and all of that stuff, the rumor report and all of that, then Charlemagne would do the rumor report in place of Angela Yee. If Charlemagne wasn't there, I think he might have had Donkey of the Days pre-recorded. I really don't remember like that for real. But I know that it'll be a two-man show with Yee and Envy. And I've always wondered, as a person who works with iHeart, it's like, why do they never allow people to fill in those spots, to keep, the show kind of like, not moving, but normalish or whatever. This example with Jess Hilarious and Lauren is exactly why I think they never did. Because if you put somebody in Envy's place and in Charlemagne's place, or at the time in Yee's place, and they do a better job, and the fans and the listeners are like, hey, we like this person, this is what executives don't be doing. Executives have their heads under the ground like an ostrich when it comes to stuff on the internet. Because the internet can say, hey, we like this person more. The radio executives won't even pay it no mind. They kind of consider it like, we're not going to let the inmates run the asylum. We know what's best. We're the professionals. That would be true if we're talking about finance, law, medicine, anything like that. We're talking about something where the people where you say they're not the professionals, they don't know, are a factor in your equation because they're the consumers that has to listen to our product in order for us to have ratings, which as a result allows us to be able to have sponsors and advertisers, which pitch revenue in the station, which allows people to be paid instead of having one person do multiple jobs. So yeah, if the listeners are telling you we like this more, I'm not saying you have to accommodate it every time, but listen to it. Take a look at it. And that's what happened now. Charlemagne the God never had anybody from like, hey, this is such and such filling in for Charlemagne the God. This is the Breakfast Club, or hey, this is Charlemagne the God, Angela Yee, and such filling in for DJ Envy. We are the Breakfast Club. Like, you never heard any of that shit before. And I'm thinking these are the reasons why. They might have had something in their contract to say that, if we're out on vacation, don't use Philly. I mean, it has to be something because, like I said, I've never seen, just because, I mean, I get it. It's a three-man show. And you easily could just just use one blessed person, whatever. But I don't know. I just always thought that was weird. But again, it ties into why we're here now. Just Hilarious was a third person on the show. Because again, think about it. They never, with Angela Yee, they never replaced her when she, and again, I mean, I don't mean replace her. They never used a fill-in when she was on vacation. But Jess Hilarious is on maternity leave. They use a fill-in, which is the producer. The Breakfast Club always had producers. Now, whether the producers were talented enough to talk and do stuff, that's yet to be seen because some producers are, some producers aren't. You know what I mean? Some producers are producers for a reason. Some producers are producers out of circumstance. So we don't know the level of producers from the past, but we know with this iteration of the Breakfast Club, Lauren is a very capable on air talent and held herself down very well, which as a result, people recognized that and was like, yo, we rather have her or listen to her over Just Hilarious. Whatever amount of money that they paid her, type shit like that. Kind of like, with the Seahawks back in the day, they paid Matt Flynn like millions of dollars per year to be their quarterback. Russell Wilson came in, third round draft pick, mopped up everything in training camp, and they were like, man, fuck the money. We got to go with the better talent, the better product on the field. Again, it goes back into what I was going to say about the radio executives not knowing how to pick talent, not knowing how to evaluate talent, and picking talent based on social media numbers and expressions. That's not what our industry is about. Like, I tell people this all the time. When you're a radio personality, you work in radio. You don't work on social media. You don't work in YouTube. You don't work in Instagram. You don't work in Snapchat. You don't work in TikTok. You don't work in Twitch. You don't work on any of these streaming platforms. You work in radio. So your metrics are totally different than radio. A person can have, 2 million followers and YouTube videos of, millions of views, 100,000 views and stuff like that. But will that necessarily translate into radio? Because even if you do the thing where you say, well, we're going to take, this person and put them on radio because they have a brand, they have a following. Yeah, their brand and their following is based on what they built, not according to what you're trying to put them in. So basically, meaning if you was a fan of Jess Hilarious and you put her in the Breakfast Club situation, but Jess Hilarious can't be Jess Hilarious, now her fans is looking at her crazy like, oh, this ain't it. Why you doing all of this new stuff? Go back to doing what you doing. And now her fan base, she loses some because she's trying to do something different, mainly because as a company, you can't develop your own talent. You want to use people who already have established people. That's why you don't see a lot of them on radio. And again, me and 321 talked about this the last time we had a radio conversation. Not the Drewskis, the Cassians, all of them. Like, you're not about to get them on professional radio or FM radio because one, you're going to have to pay them a substantial bag, and them in the radio format might not work. It might not work. Like I said, with Just Hilarious, the only way that shit would work is if you gave her her own show where it's centered around her comedy, where she may have a professional radio person drive the show for her, kind of like a Doug Banks type situation when he had Dee McGuire driving the show for Doug Banks. That type of shit. You know what I'm saying? Where Doug Banks is the name, he's the brand, but the I'm not gonna say the person with the better voice, but or the more smoother voice, or just that hosting type thing. But shoot, she drives the show. She tells us what topics to talk about. I'll chime in with my thoughts because people want to hear what I got to say. But she drives the show. A situation like that. That's how you make a Just Hilarious eat in this radio industry. But just throwing her on, and because again, the company's not going to be like, okay, this is how you do. This is how you write for print. This is how you write a news story for radio. No one's going to tell her how to do script writing. Like, nobody's going to do that shit because for the most part, the average person did it so long ago, they may only know it in muscle memory if they're doing it. So it's kind of like, okay, I can write it for you, or if you write it, I can proofread it. But as far as teaching them how to do it, hell no. Know what I'm saying? That shit is embedded in our minds. Charlamagne the God and DJ Envy wasn't going to do it and shit. Envy fucking went to Hampton. That nigga probably could have told her like something, but again, if she's there for her her comedic skills, then maybe they don't check her on journalism type stuff, but you put her in a slot that is journalism. It's Just with the Mess, which again, it took place at a rumor report. So yeah, Charlamagne the God and DJ Envy. I think I know Charlamagne went to a college, but I don't think he graduated. If I remember reading his first book, I don't think he graduated from a college. So the only person on the Breakfast Club with an education is Envy. And you think Envy's gonna go through a fucking script writing class with Jess Hilarious to make sure that she's doing her job well? Fuck no. So again, Jess Hilarious should not have been hired to do that position over established or current radio people that was already in the company. Should not have happened. But again, it just goes all into talent acquisition, knowing who is talented or whatever. Because okay, let me move forward a little bit because I don't want to say the same thing twice. So what the executives that I want to kind of sort of take a shot at or whatever, are you paying attention to what's going on social media when it comes to your talent and your people? Because I know in several markets that I've been around, the executives don't even consume the product whatsoever. So it's like, do y'all listen to hip hop and R&B? Do y'all really know what's going on in our genre? Do y'all really know what's going on in our workplace? Probably not. And it's okay. You don't know what's going on. Cool. So when you have Just Hilarious, who again, you guys have her on because she has millions of followers and all of that, and creates millions of impressions through social media. She's crashing out on social media about what the fuck is going on. We all know morning shows start early because it's early. You got to wake up early as fuck. There's no way in hell I would have had anybody crack open a microphone unless the conversation that they had on air would have happened in a room. I wouldn't give a fuck if I just got to have DJ Envy, Charlemagne the God, and Just Hilarious. We are the Breakfast Club. We got more requests coming up next, or listen to this, and whatever filler shit that they had to do. I would have done that until I had all four of them in a room and had the conversation that they had on air, because what they ended up doing was the messy shit that the code of conduct and our heart tell us pretty much not to do, which is kind of air out company grievances or company workplace disputes on social media. So once Just Hilarious put it out on social media, it's just like when LeBron ran up on Stephen A. Stephen A. wasn't going to talk about it because he felt it was nothing. But once it goes viral and you're in a business of content creation, you got to talk about it now on your show. So they had to talk about it. But what I'm saying is that the energy that they was having, 'cause like I said, Just Hilarious was calling Lauren Shorty. Lauren was calling Just Hilarious my talent. So a lot of subtle digs and stuff. Charlemagne the God was gaslighting. DJ Envy was being dismissive. So it was a lot of crazy stuff going on. Again, I did not watch it. I'm telling you this right now. I did not watch it because I just knew it would be cringeworthy, and I might have said some things that might would have got me fired, because I know the executives that work in our media in New York. I know them. Now, I'm not saying I know them personally, know them, but I can reach out to them. I know the work that they've done, or the lack of work that they've done. I can tag them in these posts and stuff like that. But I'm not going to do that because it goes into why the point I'm making is they should not have had this conversation on the radio. The conversation they should have had on the radio was basically like the mild manner after all heads have cooled down. Yeah, I felt a certain way because I was on maternity leave. It was a definite situation. I don't know if it's her first child or not, but she talked about how she feels with motherhood and all of this stuff. And I come back to work, and like, you're kind of still in my job. I don't know what's going on. And then Lauren comes back and like, oh, okay, I definitely understand that or whatever. I was just pretty much doing my job that they asked me to do. I'm not the famous person amongst the group here, so I'm pretty much do what I'm told to do, my job, whatever. And kind of have like that mild version of the conversation where for us it's like, oh, y'all talked about it, but whatever, versus the embarrassment that they did. Because when Just Hilarious contract is up, she's gone. They're not gonna fire her now because they're gonna have to pay her contract. You know what I'm saying? It ain't like most on air talent. When you get laid off or you get cut or whatever, they basically give you a severance package. Like, Just Hilarious is probably full-fledged contractor where if she leaves, she gets all of her bread. I don't know if she has a clause in her contract that's like conduct detrimental to the company, because I can make the argument that blasting the number one morning show in urban radio for the company is kind of like, going against, the company or whatever, you know what I'm saying? That type of situation, actions detrimental to, the company or to the station or whatever, to the show. So definitely that's a thing right there. But the iHeart is not going to let the Breakfast Club go for any reason, because I want to paint this picture before we go. How many of you can have the feds roll up to your job, take computers, take laptop, take technology, and walk away, and you still have your job? That was DJ Envy not too long ago with the whole, real estate fraud thing. I don't know how that case went or not, but what I'm saying is that at worst or at best, a suspension, a couple days suspension to figure it out. They didn't do shit to Envy whatsoever. All they said was Envy and them was going to cooperate. I don't know anybody's job that will let the feds just come through and take computers and laptops. I don't know any. That's insane. Charlamagne the God was accused of some stuff too, which in today's climax, getting accused of what Charlamagne was accused for normally would get you to lose your job too. My point in saying all of this is that iHeart doesn't know how to develop talent so badly that Charlamagne the God can have some serious accusations and still keep his job. DJ Envy can have some serious accusations and keep his job, and nobody says anything after that. That's how bad iHeart is at talent acquisition and talent management and or development. They can't trust themselves to let the Breakfast Club go and that the next morning show can carry on. Now, earlier I said that not everyone can do our job. And what I mean by that is not everyone outside of our industry can do our job. But any one of us who currently do radio can do the Breakfast Club's job. As long as you have those components. Like you said, you have to have one person to drive the show to keep everything organized, one person to be very informative, another one to be, very or somewhat entertaining, probably very entertaining. But if you have a three-man crew, those are the ingredients that you need for a successful morning show. And then obviously good skits, good segments, and celebrity interviews, because it is a morning show. Anybody can do the Breakfast Club. And again, that's not to minimize the Breakfast Club for what they've done over the past 15 plus years. It's not to minimize that. I'm just saying people in our industry. So I can take somebody who does radio in Atlanta, somebody that does radio in Norfolk, somebody that does radio in LA or Dallas or whatever, put them together and they can do a Breakfast Club, show, whatever. They can do a morning show. It's not like Charlamagne and Envy own the name The Breakfast Club. It's not like they own the show. The show was created by iHeart. That was one of the things that damn, I can't I'm looking at him, but I can't even think of his name right there. I know it's Duke Poppington, which I should know who the fuck I'm looking at right now. Dame Dash. When Dame Dash was on the Breakfast Club a couple of years ago, and he mentioned that, y'all don't own the Breakfast Club. If the Breakfast Club gets taken away, what do y'all have? And that's a lot of radio talent in our industry. If you take away their shows, what do they have? Most of them don't have a podcast. Most of them don't have a media network that they're working behind the scenes. Most of them, they put all of their eggs in the iHeart Radio One Odyssey basket. Now, for some of them, it's rightfully so if they pay you a salary enough and your bills are paid and you have benefits. Now I'm not talking about the people who still make 150,000 a year, but they want to make like 200,000 a year, or 250,000 a year because of the lifestyle that they live. It's like, nah, bro, you already make six figures, bro. Minimize your shit a little bit. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people that don't make a portion of what you make, and you want to cry about make. So those individuals, nah. But for the most part, most of the individuals are secure and satisfied with what they got going on if you're an executive. So you don't make that. So you don't make that fucking much money if you're everybody else. So with the Breakfast Club, Again, anybody can do the job, to say the least. Lauren right now is showing you that anybody can do the job. They just haven't put a person in DJ Envy seat outside of a Charlemagne or Angela Yee to actually drive the show. So I'm saying again, I'm saying all that to say iHeart's talent acquisition or their talent, basically finding talent just isn't good because they use the wrong metrics. They use social media metrics instead of, again, with radio. It's kind of like the eye test. Like, if you know your radio station has millions of listeners, and radio is a local situation, right? Radio is local. You having a million followers and you local don't mean shit to me. Now, again, the Breakfast Club is a national product, but just vibe with me real quick. You having millions of followers and all of that shit across the world don't matter when my radio or my medium is local radio, not national radio. Every radio show on radio is not a national show. Some of these shows are local shows. So if you bring in someone with a million followers, yeah, most of those followers, at least 80% of those followers, are not going to be local. So how does their other fan base get to listen to this local radio show that they're on? Again, that's saying if you want somebody with millions of followers to join your radio show. Like that's like the only way that you can get on is if you got millions of followers already type shit. Because again, if you as a station already have millions of followers, you just need people to entertain those individuals and make sure that they stay locked in. And that's the metric that you have to use to evaluate a local radio talent. Can you keep people listening to the radio? If the answer is yes, then you go into how can we monetize off this show? Not do you have millions of followers that you can bring your followers to our station? Nah.
You're listening to the SS Experience on SMG.